Hey everyone, welcome to the channel for another Escape from Tarkov video. In this one, I'm kicking off a small series of videos going over some tips for getting your survival rate up on each map in the game. Every map in Escape from Tarkov is vastly different, and they're all extremely intricate in their own unique ways. Some require patience to succeed, while others require bold plays and fast pushes, and there's always benefit to knowing the little secret passages that can take you around danger or give you a better angle on your targets. Because of this, sometimes it can feel like learning a whole new game every time you try out a new map. And in this series, I want to give some pointers I've picked up over a few thousand hours of experience that I hope will help you improve your survival rate on each map that I cover. To kick this series off, I think it only makes sense to start with customs, since it's home to most of the early game quests, and all players will need to become pretty familiar with the map and how to get out alive. Customs is a tricky map that's full of choke points that will funnel players together if they don't know a way around. And the major points of interest on the map are highly contested hot zones with tons of long sight lines for snipers to pick you off. It's also got a pretty dangerous scav boss crew that are super trigger happy and have some uncanny accuracy with their grenades, just to make things even more interesting. However, if you take the long way around and make smart use of the cluttered environments for cover while you rotate between locations, Customs can actually become a very fun PvP map. Once you get a good feel for the initial spawns and take note of a few stealthy paths to move through, you can start rotating on enemy players pretty effectively when you hear them, or just sneak past and get your quest items out of there. So with that out of the way, let's go over some tips for getting out of Customs alive. The first tip that I can give for Customs is that you want to leave your spawn area as soon as possible, get hard cover, and set up to ambush other players. Customs has some very PvP heavy spawns, and you always want to prepare for a fight immediately after you load in. You don't want to hang around in your spawn zone or rush headfirst out into the open middle area of the map, but you want to find a piece of cover, preferably with your back to a wall or a bit of height advantage, and wait for people to push out from the main spawn areas. Players generally spawn spread out around a fairly small area on either side of the map with only a few exits, so being the first one with good cover and eyes on the spawn points is a definite advantage. On the warehouse side, I generally try and get across the river as soon as possible, because everyone who spawns on this side needs to cross the river and there's only a few crossing points. If you can get set up on the opposite bank of the river or around the bridge area, you can get a good view of the crossings and try to ambush players who are a bit slower at leaving the spawn points. On the boiler side or the checkpoint spawn, I generally just try and get out of the fence line as soon as possible and get up on the hillside to have a height advantage. You can see basically the entire boiler spawn area from the hillside, so if you pick a good concealed spot, you should be able to spot most people who are leaving this spawn. You won't always be able to catch players like this, but at the very least, you've cleared your 6 and can be pretty confident you aren't being followed too closely. I pretty much always start my Customs raids like this with a hard push out of the spawn points and a patient little sit down session to see if anyone is following me out. Customs is in most places a long, narrow map with some pretty tight choke points that funnel players through certain sections. But there's a few areas where the map opens up a lot, and it's definitely in your best interest to avoid running right up the middle. For example, from the warehouse spawn, after crossing the river you have 3 main paths. The trees on the left, the road in the middle, and the construction site on your right. The road might be the fastest way through the map, but it's also extremely exposed from multiple angles, and people can spot you from either side. It might take a bit more time to creep through the trees or slip through the construction site, but you'll have more cover and concealment. The entire dorm side of the map is heavily forested and is generally the sneakiest way to move around the map, since you have a lot of options to slip by anyone you hear in the distance and a lot of areas to cross back over the road if you need to. It also definitely pays off to take the hiking trails at the edge of the map when you're carrying quest items to extraction, because it's generally pretty clear of players since there isn't much to loot off in the trees. The construction side of the map, while kind of heavy on the scavs, is actually not horrible to move through either, since there's tons of cover to fight from and move through. The one big requirement for moving through this side of the map is that you'll need the factory key to open up the checkpoint to avoid walking through the gas station, which is a death trap. In general, just avoid taking the more exposed paths in the middle of the map unless you're forced to, and learn how to traverse the more open areas on the side so you can move safer through the map. While Customs does have some great long sightlines because of its design, it's actually not really a big map, and you can often see about halfway across the entire map when you get to the top of a hill, building, or bridge. The map is also kind of shaped like a valley, with raised areas on one side looking down across most of the map. I definitely use this to my advantage when I'm playing, and try to move between the high points in the map to get a good look at the areas around me before I move into them. For example, if I'm approaching the dorms, I will always post up on the hill near the road or in the second floor of the 2-story dorms for a few minutes just to stop, look, and listen to what's going on. I don't wait around forever, but just long enough to see if I can spot a shadow in the window or hear some rounds being fired or someone sprinting around. It's also good to check areas around you to spot any scavs or players that might become a problem if they come your way. In the construction site area, you can also get on the raised concrete pad or onto the shacks at the checkpoint for a bit of height advantage as well. On the opposite side of the map, around the gas station and warehouses, the hillside is a great place to check for scavs and players moving across the road or down at the gas station. This can be really useful after spawn, as I mentioned before, but it's also great when you're looking to move into the boilers area and extract, since you can tell if you're going to be in for a fight with scavs or players when you cross the fence line. In general, it really pays to hold the high ground and scout around your position when playing Customs. As I mentioned before, almost an entire half of Customs is covered in some pretty dense trees and bushes, while the other half is a fairly open urban landscape with more spread out cover. Because of this, I think it's smart to vary your movement speed based on what part of the map that you're moving through. In the open areas around spawn, when crossing roads and moving through fields, it's best to move quick and find cover as fast as possible. People can and will see you crossing the road, so you want to get out of their sightline as quick as you can. On the flip side, I actually recommend taking it much slower when you're moving through the forested areas, because in these parts of the map, sound is going to give away your position way before you can see the other player. These trees, especially around the dorms, are some of the thickest in the game, and you can generally only see like 20 feet or so around you before more bushes block your vision. Because of this, you're going to hear the stomping of heavy boots and the rustling in the trees way before you can actually see whoever is running towards you. It definitely pays to move slower and avoid walking into bushes in these forested areas so that when you hear 3 guys sprinting dead at you, you have time to stop, get cover, and set up an ambush. I'm not too proud to admit that I learned this tip the hard way after getting repeatedly smoked by people who just waited for me to run up on them after hearing me running through the trees from a mile away. Of course, there are situations where you might want to move fast in the trees and slow out in the open, but as a rule of thumb, move quick when crossing roads and open areas, and slow your roll in the trees so you can hear people before they hear you. One thing that can really help with getting out of Customs alive is taking the sneaky one-use extractions on the map that generally let you avoid walking through the final choke points before the main extractions. These extract points can be especially useful when you've just pushed hard to a quest objective, have picked it up, and just need to get out fast and turn in that quest item. If you spawn on the warehouse side, you might be able to use the old gas station extraction, which is often a nice quiet corner of the map and is really easy to access if you have the factory key. Just open up the checkpoint and run straight to the back corner. If you see the green flares outside the building, you can take the extract by just walking down the stairs and then you're out. If you spawn on the boiler side, you might be able to take the smuggler's boat extraction, which is my personal favorite extract on the map. The boat is located on the bank of the river, pretty much right up against the border of the map. If you come down this hill and see the campfire smoke in the little rowboat, that means salvation is at hand and you'll be rowing your way back to the hideout in no time at all. Another extract you can use is the dorms vehicle extract, which is available as long as the car is parked near the gate right outside the dorms. You can take 4 players out of this extract, but everyone needs 7,000 rubles on their character to take it. Another extraction that's sometimes open is the RUAF roadblock, which is just outside the construction site at the top of the hill near the river. This one is randomly active, so try it at your own risk. Personally, I think it's much safer to take these extractions rather than the main ones for each side, since you can avoid walking through some pretty dangerous areas by taking these ones instead. Well, that about covers it for this video on how to up your survival rate on customs. I hope it helps you out and leads to some more success, especially for those of you who are going through the early game quest grind. Customs is definitely a tough map to play, but once you figure out some good routes and places to fight from, it can be a really satisfying map to play for PvP while hunting down players. Next up in this series, I think I'll be taking a look at interchange with a similar video. I'll be streaming more of my progress in the 0.12 patch on Twitch at twitch.tv/jdogthewise, and it would be great to have you drop by the stream, so I'll leave a link for that down in the description. Thanks for checking out the video. As always, feel free to leave any comments, corrections, or suggestions down below, and until next time, stay safe in Tarkov City. Oh, I'm gonna kill myself. This is a pretty entertaining fight. I'm digging it.